Wasabi Wallet. Unfairly private.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Friday, another edition of Why Are We Bullish? All new guests this week. Very excited to have them all. We're going to get chatting about a ton of different topics. And I'm always happy to have you all here on a Friday. Let's just get into it. As always, this is live. Anything can happen. So I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
If you haven't already, please do hit like, subscribe, share. All of those things really do help get this in front of more people, and start dropping those comments in the chat, all that good stuff. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
All right, before we bring in our guests, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. Don't panic, guys. It's fine. We're sitting at $41,549 per coin. A single US dollar will pick you up 2,407 sats. 90.11% of all Bitcoin have been mined. In terms of fees, not too bad right now. 6 sats per byte will get you into the next block. If you're willing to wait any amount of time, 1 sat per byte should do you. People panicky about these little dips. Stack the dip, stack the pump, stack the crab walk, stack it all. I don't know. When in doubt, zoom out, hit all, and relax. Shout out to sponsors of the show, Shakepay.com. If you're buying Bitcoin in Canada, one of the simplest ways to do it. No deposit fees, no withdrawal fees, thin spread. When you go there, if you sign up with the link down below, after your first $100, they'll give you $30 for free. That's a lot of extra sats. Also, you get the same deal if you refer a friend. And once you do refer a friend, you get sats every single day when you shake your phone. I'm on a 100-day streak. I hit my 100-day streak today. Check them out. Also, they've got their Visa card now, so you can tap and earn sats back on all your purchases. Check them out. Links are down below. LEDN.io. If you can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different services. For me personally, it's been if I'm in a pinch and I need dollars and it's a cash flow related thing and I don't want to sell my Bitcoin because that's a taxable event and I'm worried about buying back in at a higher price. Well, I can deposit Bitcoin here, get a loan of dollars to my bank account within 24 hours. And when I pay that back, I get the same amount of sats. So that's the important number to me. They do have savings for Bitcoin and USDC, and they also have their B2X offering. Check them out on the links in the show notes. Now, I do live on Bitcoin. Bitrefill helps a ton with this. You can get just about every gift card your little heart desires in a ton of different countries. You can pay on chain with Bitcoin or via the Lightning Network. And also you do earn sats back as you shop. All kinds of great stuff here. So check them out in the show notes. Keystone, you guys, these guys, one of my most used hardware wallets. I love it. It's 100% air gapped, meaning you don't plug it into anything internet connected. It's all offline via QR code, keeping the keys to your money safe and away from internet connections. On top of this, Bitcoin only firmware. Highly recommend you upgrade to this, and it works with a ton of different wallets. Blue Wallet, Wasabi Wallet, Spectre, Sparrow. I just did a video on Nunchuck, and it's really badass in a multi-sig. So check it out. And finally, if you're backing up any important hardware wallet or software wallet for that matter, anything with a meaningful amount of funds, you want that seed to be secure. Get it into solid steel. Paper doesn't always cut it. Fire damage, water damage. You might discard it if it's just a slip of paper lying around. Steel can help you mitigate those risks. This is how I back up all my shit. So check out the BillFodl at privacypros.io. And that's enough of my ranting. I want to get these guys in here. Let's start chatting. We've got Adam, we've got Andy, we've got Mike. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's do a quick round of intros. Let people know who you are, what you do. We'll start with Adam. Take it away. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? A little bit about myself. Adam Simecka. I was a firefighter in the Air Force for 6 years. Went on to become a hardware security consultant, helping people build safe and secure buildings. And I'm the founder of Hands Free Bitcoin. We make consumer-friendly, at-home, plug-and-play Bitcoin miners.
Nice. I might have to chat with you about that. It's interesting. All right, let's keep going around the circle. Mike, how about you? Who are you? What do you do?
What's up, guys? I actually also had some prior experience in the military. I was a aircraft hydraulics specialist, which is just a really fancy way to say that I worked on hydraulic systems for helicopters. Did 6 years in the National Guard with them, and then after that, well, that's actually where my whole Bitcoin journey started. While I was overseas on deployment, and then came back and got a degree in exercise science, and now I write for Bitcoin Magazine. So it's a lot of fun.
Damn, dude. That's a hell of a journey. Well, glad to have you. And let's do one last. Andy, it's all up to you. What's going on? Who are you?
Amen.
What do you do?
Great to be here. My name is Andy Flattery, and I am a mere pleb. I'm a class of 2021 Bitcoiner, and I'm learning all the time. I'm a certified financial planner by trade, and I do a podcast called The Reformed Financial Advisor, where we talk about Bitcoin as it relates to personal financial planning. And Ben, you don't know this, but you're the guy that taught me how to use a hardware wallet. So I have you to thank for that, man.
That's awesome. Well, dude, I'm glad to have you. And I always love seeing class of 20 or 21 that are coming in, and they're kind of getting in a way that kind of allows them to kind of bypass a lot of the noise that a lot of us were subject to in like 2017 or so when people came in. I feel like the signal is a lot stronger these days than it was back then, and so that's cool to see. So welcome to all of you, and welcome to everybody watching. This is Why Are We Bullish? And so pretty basic premise to the show. Everybody brings a reason why they're bullish, and we go by the 3 R's. This is how we run the show. Somebody's going to give a reason why they're bullish. Then we're all going to riff on the reason together, and then we're going to rotate to the next person until we're all through. Really easy, really simple. So I'm going to get us started. I've got a simple on its face reason for being bullish this week. And my reason this week is wallets. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit. I'm bullish on Bitcoin wallets because of the evolution that I've seen over the past 5 years of making videos on the topic. And I've seen the kind of rise of all-in-one solutions for software wallets. And what I mean by all-in-one is, I can manage just about damn near every aspect of my Bitcoin from a single piece of software, and there's multiple options for this. So what spurred on this reason for being bullish was I did a video on Monday for Nunchuk wallet. Okay, so Nunchuk, it allows you to do a whole bunch of different things, but it's not alone in this aspect. So a couple of things I've noticed over the past few years, the user interface and the user experience has gotten a lot better and a lot more intuitive. Now it's nowhere near perfect, but there's a lot of solutions out there that are starting to nail down those moments when people would go, what the hell do I do now? And really making it simple and intuitive to just say, oh, obviously I go here, or make it relatively simple for a newcomer to come across. The next thing is kind of features and functionality. And so what I mean by that in terms of features is things that you may not realize you need, but eventually do need, are just there now. So things like replace by fee. You send a transaction, the fee is too low and it's taking too long, and there's a spike in the mempool, and you're like, oh shit, I need to bump my fee. And you can just do it in a lot of wallets now. Not only that, but automated and manual fees being default in everything, where you can either do like the fast, medium, or slow option, or default to setting your sats per byte. On top of that, you get stuff like the option to connect to your own node in a lot of great wallets lately. You get some of the UTXO management. So like taking the individual bits of Bitcoin and designating which ones you want to use, which can be privacy preserving. You can also label them so that you know where they came from and where they've gone to and what is commingled. And so you can kind of form a picture of who knows what you own. And on top of that, you get things like batching transactions, coin join baked into some of them. So some of the wallets that I want to shout out, Nunchuck, I just mentioned, Sparrow Wallet, Spectre, Wasabi Wallet, Blue Wallet. A lot of these things, they just have so many of these features. Now, not all of them have everything, but damn near. And on top of that, you have the ability in a lot of them to create hot wallets that are, on a device that is connected to the internet, connect cold wallets or watch only wallets that are connected to a piece of hardware, do multi-sig in a good number of these. And now with the Nunchuck one that I just did, do collaborative multi-sig across multiple parties, where you have multiple people all part of a single multi-sig, and there's like a baked in chat messenger to coordinate a transaction. It's crazy.
That's cool.
And then even beyond that is the compatibility of hardware. So you're getting things like default in all the ones that I just mentioned. You're getting some mix of most of Trezor, Ledger, Coldcard, Keystone, Passport, and Bitbox. And so I think the reason that we're seeing a lot of this is a focus on Bitcoin only, because if you're Bitcoin only, then you can spend a lot more time baking in all of these features and working on compatibility with all of these wallets and hardware devices. And it just makes for such a robust experience for a basic user all the way up to a power user. And I'm super bullish on what I'm seeing just with wallets. So with that, I know that was a bit of a lengthy explanation, but I'm stoked on that this week. I don't know what it is. It's just there's so much cool stuff happening. So I'm gonna open it up to the floor here. I guess first off, I'll just ask a general question. What are some of the favorite wallets that you guys are using right now?
I'll go ahead and kick us off on that. I just to point out, I think it's kind of bullish just in the sense that there are so many of them out there now. When I first started using Bitcoin, there really weren't a lot of options. And so you mentioned some of the usability upgrades, and the feature sets are continually expanding. I think that's awesome. My two personal favorite, at least mobile wallets that I use, are Moon and Blue Wallet. I like Moon because of its like interoperability between on-chain and Lightning. And then Blue Wallet has a really great UI. But like I said, there's so many of them out there. I haven't gotten a chance to try them all. Those are my personal two favorites.
Nice. How about Mike or Andy?
I will have to say that I'm pretty boring with the whole wallet experience. When I first got into Bitcoin a couple years ago, I was on deployment. I don't want to dox myself completely. I got like a stack of them off Amazon. Well, not off Amazon. That's an awful example to place. But I got a Ledger, and then I got 2 Trezor to try out, and I never got any more after that. Like once I used one to test and used the other to, be my baby, my home spot for my Bitcoin, I just set that up and never really dabbled. I keep a hot wallet, but I have Moon, and I've tried everything else out, but I don't know. I'm pretty boring that way.
That's kind of the beauty of it too, though, because that's fine for somebody to do.
Yeah.
Somebody just steps in the room and is like, I got a Trezor. And then that's totally fine, because the level of security that you get out of that. And I know that some people are like, wow, if somebody gets a hold of it and they've got specialized equipment and they take, yes, there's that, if you're thinking adversarially as a Bitcoiner, absolutely. But, for the vast majority of people, any hardware wallet, with a backup stored elsewhere is orders of magnitude more secure than what you're going to get on average, holding your money under a mattress, or, in having it custodied by somebody else. And I know that there's also going to be people that say, well, there's insurance and everything. I don't know. I don't buy that. I think it's bullshit. I think
Oh, yeah.
that self-custody is the way to go, and that everybody can do it, and it can be as simple as, I got a Trezor, I'm good.
I tell you what, I will admit though, since the coin join function like came on stage, I've really just been waiting until a wallet integrated that, like the coin join function. So now I'm just like, okay, now I gotta go shopping again. Damn it.
You know what? It's so for desktop, especially for low value coin join, Sparrow it's just got everything baked in, because you can have a hot wallet on there. You can link up your Trezor to it, and you can have a hot wallet that does coin join. And after a certain amount of coin joins, it will auto deposit into your Trezor.
Oh, they swanified it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I did a full tutorial on CoinJoin and Sparrow. So if you're looking after, just go through. It shows you how to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Andy, I'm gonna let you chat.
Yeah, I'm with good old Blue Wallet, and I've been using Breeze as my Lightning wallet because it's got just so many little bells and whistles, and I love kind of the group behind that project because they seem so kind of interested in the Lightning Network in general. So, as a podcaster, I can boost my favorite Bitcoin podcast right now, and they've added the functionality where you can send a message with that boost. So I really love that function of the podcasting 2.0 stuff. And I think of it as like, how the internet has evolved. Like my grandmother, my 80-some-year-old grandmother in Fort Dodge, Iowa, now uses Facebook on her cell phone. And 20, 30 years ago, she never would have imagined that the internet would have been that easy for her to use if she even knew what the internet was. And so, Ben, I agree with you. You can imagine a future where wallets make it so easy that anyone is going to be able to use this thing. And I think we're moving in that direction.
Dude, I love, again, I don't want to keep on pointing out that you're class of 21, but you're class of 21, and you just told me that you're coming in, you're using Blue Wallet, but you're also using a Lightning wallet, and you're using podcasting 2.0. That's pretty astounding for somebody coming out the gate. And I think it speaks to, one, obviously you've taken the time to look into and understand these things, but also to two, the accessibility that's being built by these teams like Blue Wallet and Breeze. Like, they're doing such incredible work.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple to get up with these products. I got my own podcast up on podcasting 2.0 in a matter of like an hour. And they've made it really easy to use. And I frankly, I want to learn how to use it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. 3, 4, 5 years ago, that would not have been the case, which is probably one of the reasons why it took me so long to come around to Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to pull up, we got a quick question. So as a newbie, I've seen Old Fart in the comments many times below. So welcome, Old Fart. I'm glad for you to be here again. He's just asking about, so I got a hardware wallet. I moved my Bitcoin to it. He said, if my exchange gets hacked, I can send my Bitcoin from my hard wallet to any other exchange, correct? I think he's probably alluding to the idea of if his current exchange that he usually uses to like convert into and out of fiat is deemed no longer secure, he can send from his self-custody back to any other custodian to exchange for dollars if he needs them. And yeah, absolutely. Like, once you have Bitcoin in your custody, there's nobody to tell you no. You can send it wherever you like, as long as there's a service that is available to you in your locale. So if you're in the US, whether it be Strike or Swan or Cash App or whatever you're using for kind of your Bitcoin back and forth, it's agnostic to what wallet you as an individual are using to hold your Bitcoin. So whether it's a hardware wallet, whether it's a hot wallet, whether it's a Trezor, Ledger, Cold Card, Keystone, whatever the hell you're using, it's all agnostic. It's all interoperable. You can send Bitcoin from any wallet to any wallet, or any wallet to any exchange. So yeah, absolutely. You should not have a problem there. The other thing that I wanted to bring up and ask you guys is, are there things in wallets that you feel are still missing? Like, what would you like to see? What is something that could either make it easier, a feature that you feel is missing in some wallets or in all wallets? What's next for you? What do you think is best?
Well, I'll go ahead and start with this question. I actually have thought about this a lot. It's honestly, I think it's a spectrum because, especially if I look at hardware wallets, it's probably a different conversation for software wallets. But when you look at the hardware options out there, I think that it's all about trade-offs. You know, what do you want more of, and what do you want less of? And so when I look at the different options out there, the different options that I have, you know, there are some aspects and features that I like more about some than others. Thinking about things like portability, you know, I like the portability aspect of some wallets, but of course the trade-off there is, you know, some security risks. The other thing that I like about some of my wallets is the interoperability between something like my phone, whether it's connecting over Bluetooth, or even something that's completely air gapped. And so those are kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. And I don't personally think that there is a, you know, one right answer and all the other answers are wrong. But I do think that we're kind of continually progressing to better and better options. So I don't necessarily have one that I would say, or a specific feature that I think, you know, needs to be on a wallet. But as long as we're keeping, you know, user experience at the top in the design of new wallets, ultimately the market's going to decide, you know, what's best.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo your interoperability, particularly on mobile. So like right now, mobile, like direct, easy access across both types of, whether it be iOS or Android. You basically got Ledger, which is Bluetooth. You've got like Keystone and Foundation, which are air gapped QR, right? Outside of that, then you're running into actually physically plugging a device into a phone if it will allow. So basically, if you're on Android, you can do that, or air gapping via SD card with cold card, which can be, you know, a little onerous. I do hear rumblings that cold card is working on, they're tinkering with NFC.
I think they just released their GitHub. On GitHub, they just released their spec for NFC.
Ooh, damn. That sounds like I will be doing some shopping soon in the near future. But that's exciting. Yeah, I think yeah, that interoperability. And again, like so many of the wallets now, you can just whatever you want to plug into them, especially like desktop. It's pretty much across the gamut. You can just use any wallet that caters to Bitcoin only, for sure, you're probably gonna be able to use. But I think that will continue to improve, and we'll see more across mobile as well. Mike, for you, you're like dabbling. You're gonna start looking. You said now with all the CoinJoin stuff. What are some of the things that you're looking for out of a wallet as you start looking around? What are the things that stand out to you?
It's a little bit, again, more boring for me just because I'm not like a huge, like, not a developer or a coder or like a huge like techie guy. I mean, I am, but I'm not, right? When it comes to like the hardware wallets, one of the things that I enjoy most is that, kind of like what Adam was saying, is that the more simple that they are, really the greater the security they're going to have, in my opinion. Because like as you add more features, it basically opens up the possibility for more attack vectors and all sorts of like all that other junk. And that's just like, when it comes to an asset like Bitcoin, like I enjoy being able to sleep well at night because I know where my stuff is.
Yeah.
But really that CoinJoin function is what really excites me most. But you the way I understand is you don't really want that in a hardware wallet, right? Because you kind of want it in a different area to be able to send it to it. So when it comes to, I honestly, I gotta say, like, I don't know it's kind of like the Steve Jobs thing. I don't know what I want until I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm not a developer. So I'm going to have to say that there isn't really anything that I could say I suggest looking forward to. Cause like, even like, I love, Rodolfo. Like I talked to him quite a bit. But honestly, like I could still because I'm not a tech guy, like I could still see the NFC function as being like a form of like an attack vector. But I don't understand the technology fully either. So that could just be my ignorance, which is, willful. So
yeah. And it's everybody's comfort level. Like some people don't like plugging a device into a computer at all, right? Like that's to some that they worry about, oh, it's plugged in. For others, it's, oh, it has Bluetooth. Oh, I don't like that. Some people don't like the QR functionality because they're worried that you can't fully, unless you're checking every QR code on separate hardware and separate software, then you're never really sure. And all of those are valid criticisms. It's just, as we've been saying, trade-offs. And you're right about the coin join versus hardware. It's basically, it's not possible with a hardware wallet. And the reason for that is basically there's these rounds of coin join and you're waiting for enough people to join. And then you create a transaction altogether, and then your wallet has to sign the transaction for it to go through. You're basically sending money back to yourself, but because it's joined with a bunch of people doing the same thing, it's indecipherable who owns what. The problem with trying to do that with a hardware wallet is unless you're there at the exact second with your device hitting approve, then you're not going to make the round and they're just going to go on without you. So it has to be a hot wallet, but that's where Sparrow kind of scratches that itch where you can do the coin joins. You can say, hey, I want to do 5 rounds. And then after that, on the 5th round, I want it to auto send to my hardware device. And then that just, it sorts itself out for you. It's just auto deposited into cold storage, which is beautiful. I love it. So yeah, I think there's a ton of great things happening in wallets. I won't take too much more time regarding this topic. I think I'll keep us rolling, but thanks for all your input, gents. I think it's time we move on to our next reason for being bullish. Everybody in the chat, thanks for chatting it up. I'm going to start trying to pull in more comments as we go. Of course, hit like, share, all that good stuff, but let's jump down the line. I'm going to go to Adam, and I'm going to let you have your little rant. What are you excited about this week?
So the reason I am excited about bullish, excited about Bitcoin, bullish on Bitcoin, it has to do with the elephant in the room, as I say. And the elephant that I'm referring to is actually the parable of the blind man and the elephant. And I'm not the first person, even in the Bitcoin space, to talk about this. But hopefully I can add a fresh new take. But for anybody that doesn't know about the parable or what it is, generally speaking, it's you're laughing, Mike. Is that what you were going to talk about?
Oh no, man. I love it.
Okay.
Mr. Maria Praise B in here. Yeah.
Before the show, he was mentioning he was going to be getting into some philosophical stuff as well, just making sure we weren't going to be covering the same topic. But
no, you're good, man.
So the blind men and the elephant. There's a few different versions. It's a very old parable, but generally it's about these blind men that are traveling and they come across this object that they can't identify, right? Because they're blind. And it's, as we know, it's the elephant. But as they're trying to figure out what this thing is, they touch the different parts of the elephant to try to figure out, what they just came across. And so you see one of the guys go up, he just runs straight into the side of the elephant and he says it's a wall. Another one wraps his arms around the leg of the elephant and he says it's a tree. There's another man that's on the tusk and he says it's a spear. One on the trunk says it's a snake. Guy that's grabbing a hold of the ear says it's a fan. And, I think it's kind of, funny because, to a degree, we all know that they're wrong. It's an elephant. But on the same token, they're also kind of right because those individual functions and, parts of that elephant can function in that manner as well. And I think in this case, Bitcoin is the elephant and we're all the blind men trying to make sense of this new discovery, because we've never seen anything like this before. And it became, really evident to me recently. And if you're spending much time on Bitcoin Twitter these days, you may have seen some bantering, to put it lightly, on the topic of Bitcoin and progressivism. So that's kind of been a topic that's been floating around lately. And I saw the reason why I thought about this is because I saw somebody say, I think it was an article title. I didn't read it, but I'm sure it was well thought out. But the title of their article was simply, Bitcoin is good for progressives. And of course, a lot of people, spoke up on that and had their opinions, right? The blind men are fighting about what they see Bitcoin as. And I'll say that my perspective as a blind man myself, I disagreed with it, but not necessarily for the same reason that other people were disagreeing. I disagreed with it because I think that Bitcoin is good for everybody. It's good for humans. I think Bitcoin's like air, right? Air is good for us because we're human. We need it. Air is good for progressives. Air is good for conservatives. Air is good for libertarians. Air is good for good people, and air is good for bad people. And in the same way, I think Bitcoin is good for everybody. It's good for us for being human. And as I'm kind of like going through this thought experiment in my head, I'm thinking also about some of the things that Jason Lowery has pointed out recently. And not everybody agrees with everything that he says in all of his points, but I think he makes a really good one about the fact that, your adversary defending their position in Bitcoin and contributing to their vision in Bitcoin actually really bolsters your defense. It's mutual assurance. And so it's like you got all these blind men and they're all describing, what this thing is, and they've got their own perspective and how Bitcoin applies to them and how they can use it as a tool as a means to their end, basically. And these blind men, as they're fighting, they're actually making the other person's tool stronger. And I thought that was really cool. So that's why I'm bullish. Bitcoin is an elephant.
That's awesome. I love it. It echoes pretty. Also, Narwhal Tacos says Janet Yellen told me only perverts and terrorists use air. I don't trust it.
It's also an awesome username.
Yeah. Everybody experiences Bitcoin in their own way, right? Everybody comes to it for different reasons. And particularly people in the West, at least their initial touch points with Bitcoin are as a number go up, like their initial thought is to get more dollars, is until they do dig deeper. Whereas in other parts of the world, like it was nice enough for Gladstein invited me down for the Human Rights Foundation, the Oslo Freedom Forum in October. And there were people from all over the world where their first touch point is not at all related to that. It's, I need to protect my assets from the state. I need to be able to pay my workers. I need to be able to survive, and I need to perhaps flee with more than just the shirt on my back. I need to escape hyperinflation. I need to escape economic colonialism in the instance of a lot of African countries where France gets to dictate how their currency works, gets to print more of their currency, and gets first dibs on all of their local assets and products before the rest of the world, which they can then print money and then buy those assets basically for zero. And so people are looking for ways to escape different forms of oppression first, rather than kind of the number go up first touches that we get here. So it's very true that everybody has their own experience. I'll open it up to Mike or Andy if you want to comment on anything Adam said.
Well, that's I don't mean to talk, Andy. You haven't had a whole lot of chance to talk here, but I'll make it quick. I personally love that, like, kind of like along the same lines, is that I've found myself often becoming the kind of like the balancing act in a lot of these spaces and in other conversations. Is like we'll get what Adam mentioned is like someone who's taking the side of all central banks are going to be destroyed by Bitcoin, and then someone who like takes a, a competing stance. And I'm just like, guys, like the reality is that it's going to be a blend of all of it. Like that's just how reality is. Like it's gonna, like conservatives and progressives and libertarians are all like kind of like at each other's throats right now inside Bitcoin, trying to basically tell each other how it's gonna end up playing out. And it's like Bitcoin's for everybody. It's not gonna be any one of those extremes, guys. So let's just calm down a little bit.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. Guido Holzman made the point. I'm sure maybe he's not the first, but he made the point that inflation in the United States prior to World War II really only existed in those periods of wartime. That's when we had inflation here in the United States. Now, of course, since World War II, it's been an inflation bonanza, because it's been basically wartime, not just wartime, but money printing for just about everything. But I guess if you're still one of these progressives that doesn't believe in immoral wars, you are a fan of sound money. You are a fan of a disinflationary monetary system. So I agree with you. Bitcoin is for everyone. I'm a Catholic, and I feel like my Bitcoin journey is a reflection of my Christian faith. But I know that there are atheists that say that Bitcoin is a reflection of their atheism, and I want them on my team too, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is truth, and truth wins out, no matter what your ideology is. So I'm with all you guys on this.
Super interesting on the religion and Bitcoin kind of convergence, because again, I myself, I'm not religious, but I did grow up in a Catholic household. So I went to Catholic school as a kid all the way through high school. And so when I initially came to Bitcoin, I kind of saw them as divergent, religion and Bitcoin. But I think the more I'm around it, I do get a lot of the draw, because it kind of gives almost like a moral framework to economics. It takes away some of the deception and gatekeeping that we see in traditional finance. And so I get some of those draws. Like, are there certain things that you feel line up for you morally with Bitcoin, and it mirrors your religious stance?
I mean, the key to unlocking it for me was that Austrian economist Guido Holzman. He contemporary of ours, like he's been on the Stefan Livera podcast. I think he's friendly to Bitcoin, and he did a lot of work on a 13th century French bishop named Nicolas Orem, who was one of the first to recognize the kind of immorality of inflation, or like the kings clipping the coins, if you will. And he wrote a great book called The Ethics of Money Production, which a lot of Bitcoiners have pointed to as kind of like a precursor to the Bitcoin ethos. And so that's been kind of my avenue into it. But a lot of people, you don't have to be a Catholic to believe in the truth of that. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in reading the book. It was written by a handful of Bitcoiners, but Thank God for Bitcoin, just because I want to kind of see the lines of thought and how they kind of coalesce. I think that'll be on the list for me, because it's a different framework than perhaps I've explored before. So
we should have like another conversation about just on that topic, because I could talk for like a couple hours myself on just Bitcoin and religion.
Yeah, I think that'd be super interesting. I did do a chat with Alex Svetsky and Knut Svanholm about it.
Those are opposing
yeah
points of view. Holy cow.
Yeah. And it was on Alex's show. Although when I was on, it was, I mean, Alex did try to take the contrarian position to kind of where me and Knut were sitting. And I wasn't as extreme as Knut, I will say. I was kind of like, but I think I've gotten more of the alignment since then. I understand the reasoning more now than I did previously. So yeah, you're right. That's a topic that we could have a powwow around all day and all night. But we'll put that one off. But
you're a charitable man, Ben. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm excited to maybe have that conversation in the future here. Awesome. Anybody have any other final thoughts around this topic here of the elephant in the room? Anybody have anything they want to tag on before we move on?
Well, like the best part about it being an elephant in the room is that you really kind of just maximize adoption that way. Like when it has so many different facets of what would allow someone to find value for it. And in my opinion, like the more you learn about it, you can't really use any of the other facets as a reason not to like another facet. Yeah. Like they're all just bonuses. Once you grasp the one that gets your attention, you just start like learning more and more about it, and you go deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole. And it's an interesting rabbit hole because it's like when you think about it, you would expect the rabbit hole to get kind of more like tighter and darker, but it really just gets wider and brighter. Like I love the Bitcoin rabbit hole, man. I spend hours every day going down it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's wrap this one here. And again, Adam, thank you for the topic. I loved it. And I'm sure we could riff on it for hours, but I want to get everybody else's topics in too. Everybody in the chat, keep them coming. I do see there's a lot of just on the topics that we were just talking about. I just want to pull a few little comments before we move on. What was it? Hold on here. No, of course, Narwhal. Again, Jesus would teach us all to mine. Shane was shouting out Jimmy Song and Robert Breedlove. They were two of the notable authors from Thank God for Bitcoin. Sister Maria was dropping some bombs in here. The Holy Book of Satoshi, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. Those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction.
Jesus.
Yeah, just getting deep there. Have you been on the Clubhouse Sunday Satoshi Sunday service?
Oh
yeah.
I was around for its inception.
Yeah. It's pretty intense. And some people come in there and they get pretty mad because they don't get that it's just like a clapback to people calling Bitcoin a cult. It's more of like a play on that of like, hey, if they're gonna call it this, then we'll just embrace it and have people get angry about it.
That was basically the reason behind it, or the justification.
Yeah, exactly. And I dropped into one of those early on, and I was like, "What is this? What is like?" It was a full sermon, and there was no breaking.
They had the dong. They had
it was wild. But then you get in there, and once you kind of get what like the reasoning behind it, and you're like, okay, I could roll with this. And then it's kind of almost just like it's a relaxing thing to like go there and just listen in and be a part of it. I think it's kind of fun now. I enjoy it. And indeed, Tom, hallelujah.
It's like a public confessional where people aren't afraid to dump out their purse.
Yes. And there's also, I love the shitcoin confessions. That's a good part of it too. That's a good segment, but I digress. Let's keep this thing rolling. Everybody in the chat, thank you for being here again. Like, share, all that good stuff. Mike, you are up. What has you excited this week? Take it away.
I got to stop looking at the comments real quick. You guys are cracking me up. So my kind of topic was kind of just around accountability in general. And the reason for that is coming from, so I told you guys I got my degree in exercise science, and exercise and movement sciences is the technical name for it. But really, so I've spent about 15 years in really just in fitness, between just like working out and like kind of going down the personal training rabbit hole and all that stuff. And this is kind of what allowed me to really get Bitcoin rather quickly, is that just from a health and fitness standpoint, we could talk. I'm going to really talk just like from America's point of view. We have, in my opinion, like a pandemic of accountability and responsibility. a lot of what's going on, barring like the health stuff that's going on in politics and everything, just around public health, there's a huge aversion in the public to just responsibility in general around their personal health. And if any of you guys have read like my articles, you could probably kind of pick up on that as you go through. I talk about diet and health with regards to the accountability of people not having nice Ramel. Is it Ramelli? Yeah.
Ramel, already doing bench.
Get those reps in, bro. But around like just personal health and diet, like there's a general just aversion to accountability and responsibility. But this goes a lot deeper. So really we can talk about how Bitcoin kind of, if you really want to protect yourself, it forces you into taking on accountability and responsibility. Like if you don't want to have to worry about the fact that if like Coinbase or Gemini do something stupid and for whatever reason they get nationalized or something like that, and then you have like you're limited on your access to it, like your funds or something like that. That's personally what scared me, and it forced me into accountability and responsibility with hardware wallets, keys, management, and all that stuff. But the accountability, like once you get that in Bitcoin, it can help you kind of like, from my point of view, really start to focus on like hammering down and kind of perfecting your own accountability and responsibility in a lot of different other fields. And I think that the more Americans that really take on this philosophy of just embracing accountability and responsibility, which is really gets you closer to freedom, I think we would all agree. I think it will also help us fix the other plagues that are also going on in our society here, just within the United States. For instance, the pinned tweet on my profile on Twitter is the article I wrote about the education system. Like the education system is awful. And you can kind of trace that back through the accountability thread where it comes back to like politics and unions, or even just going straight back to like, again, the population. Like if more individuals in the population are more accountable and more responsible themselves, you get kind of like a positive feedback loop of if the people are responsible and accountable, then the institutions are more likely to be more accountable and responsible, because that's all institutions are. That's all countries are. That's all companies are. That's all churches and religions are. It's like they're managed by people. And if the people aren't accountable and responsible, we're going to get the situation we're in right now. So that's what makes me bullish. Like I'm like, price action is cool. Like I love, getting more purchasing power. Like who wouldn't? You'd be kind of stupid, in my opinion, if you didn't enjoy getting more purchasing power. But really, I'm looking forward to fixing the kind of mind disease that we're suffering from right now. Because again, off my tangent around accountability and responsibility, like there's also like that's coming out of all of these problems because of like the aversions. We've got issues with nihilism, like really, really bad nihilism. And it's like contributing to the depression rates and the type 2 diabetes. And it's like, it's all a part of the same system.
Mm-hmm. This tags on to a topic that I think John Vallis explores this a lot is this springing forth of kind of greater optimism amongst a lot of Bitcoiners.
Yep.
And people kind of like turning around the way that they look at life, and rather than deferring, as you were talking about, deferring responsibility or placing blame elsewhere, it kind of forces people to look inwards, because Bitcoin is a tool that can be used to kind of liberate yourself and to give yourself greater freedom. And it's all kind of tied back to, Bitcoin and any money is just a representation of your time. And it just depends how well that money actually represents your time. Is it equally finite or is it not? And so when you have those tools available, it changes your mindset, because you can now say, I'd like to allocate my time to this and then save it for later, because there's a mechanism to do that. And when you don't have that, your time preference shrinks to the point where you're not thinking. You can't possibly think into the future. You can't plan for your future. You can't plan for retirement. You can only gamble and hope that it pans out, or you can blame somebody for your dire condition. And I mean, there is blame to go around, right? Like the system itself is inherently broken in that it doesn't allow us to do this type of planning. But in the presence of a new system, as people come into that, they will be able to plan. And even if you have setbacks, you'll at least know that you won't be spinning your wheels trying to catch up to where you used to be, which is massive.
Well, and that's another thing too. You brought up time. I wrote a piece on that actually, coincidentally. And the funny thing is, we all talk about time being finite, but we don't talk about the value of it. So like the older we get, and which typically the older we get, like our time value tends to go up almost exponentially, right? Because as we get older, you take on more responsibilities, more jobs. Maybe you have a family, maybe you have a few kids. Like once you start getting up into there, the value of your time is going up exponentially, which means that you also have to be equally more like responsible with how you're gonna like. So like when you have a family, are you going to be spending that time continuing to like work on your business, or are you actually going to like value the memories you can make? Like there's the nihilism in my like I'm a millennial, and the nihilism in my own generation from my own peers is just, it's disheartening, man. Like and then like you said, like Bitcoin fixes, like helps with the optimism. And like I can understand the nihilism, because like if you can't see a way out, like that's where it comes from. But then once you understand Bitcoin, and where we get back to the religion topic, Adam, people think it's like culty from the outside, and it like almost turns them away. But then once you give it a moment, and you take the time to understand one of the facets of the elephant, and you kind of like see the bridge that's like the tiny little candle at the end of the cave, then you get closer and closer, and it grows exponentially. I love talking about this stuff.
I found that to be. Go ahead, Ben.
I was just gonna say the no coiners that think it's a cult, they're at the butthole of the elephant. and then the few of them might grab like a leg and be like, oh, there's more here. I think that's the journey.
I was just going to add that I find that to be extremely evident when I'm, trying to orange pill somebody. I've noticed that, there's not a specific formula, and everybody opens up in a different way. Yep. Some people never do, but I've never seen, at least in my personal circle, everybody that I've seen, that I know that has really, kind of gone down the rabbit hole, has gone down for a different reason.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like fitness and health. Like everybody has their own problems and their own justifications and their own goals. Like that's the thing, is like most of my time in spaces, I'm just giving advice to people on how to like talk to other people, because like everyone like one of the most common questions is, how do I orange pill my grandparent or my mom or my sister or like my cousin? There's you guys, like whoever, like everybody in the comments and that's watching is like, you're not gonna have a cookie cutter answer for every conversation. You have to meet every single one where they are, and you can't meet them where they are until you ask them what they're like aiming for.
Absolutely. I got some really good advice not too long ago. I don't remember exactly who said it. I think it might have been one of the Kansas City Bitcoiner guys, but he said, when you're orange pilling somebody, instead of approaching them and starting the conversation, just listen to them, sit down and talk to them, let them talk, let them tell you what their problems are, and then you can find a way in.
Well, and you let them talk, and it makes them feel like their point of view is valued. Yeah, and then from that standpoint, you're not talking down to them, which is what most Bitcoiners end up doing.
Yeah. And back on the subject, Mike, I want to say that I do agree with a lot of what you said, and this is just my opinion. I'm just one blind man in the world of elephants, but I think the root of the problem is that the incentives without Bitcoin are broken. So the incentive structure, it's not, in my opinion, not necessarily a direct cause and effect from the lack of accountability. I think it's a lot of knock-on effects. And and I was listening to Orange Pill Addicts podcast recently, and they mentioned a lot of different of these knock-on, effects that this causes in terms of agriculture and even education, as you mentioned. And even Andy Flattery here on the show here, he's even done a recent podcast on education. So sorry to put you in the spotlight, but hopefully he'll talk to us a little bit about that too. But again, I think it comes back down to the incentives. I think over time it'll work itself out on a hard money Bitcoin standard. But I don't necessarily think it fixes itself overnight. It's gonna take some time.
Oh yeah, I love that you pulled up agriculture, because I'm actually working on a pretty big piece for Bitcoin Magazine right now. I might have to split it up into a couple, because I think from notes alone it's 8 pages long. So
Damn.
yeah,
That'll be a beast. I look forward to listening to that with the silky smooth voice of Guy Swan.
yes.
Andy,
I was going to say, speaking of silky smooth voices, Andy, why don't you give it a shot?
Well, let me just add one thing to Mike, what you're saying. And I think you did correct me if I'm wrong, you did an article called something like Bitcoin is the revival of the American dream.
Yes.
Something to that effect.
Yep.
And a lot of times when we think about the American dream, we think about like becoming wealthy or something. Of course, that's part of it. But maybe it's also like having a purpose. And you mentioned the word nihilism, which I guess, I don't know, we're probably all millennials here. If the millennial generation is suffering from nihilism, well, there's reason to believe like living on a sound money standard could give you more purpose. For example, like if let's say like this is kind of post welfare state, or even like, in kind of like the Belle Epoque period or the Gilded Age, where we actually did not have a welfare state yet. What would happen is people weren't dying in the street. Single mothers weren't starving. What would happen is the wealthy industrialists, many times, the local philanthropists.
Yep.
They were the people that were supporting individuals directly, because frankly they had to. Like if they didn't do it, nobody else would step in. There was no federal government to print money and write checks. And I think some of these people probably did it out of ego, but they also did it because they had a purpose, and they had like this idea that like, I've been given this wealth, I've earned it, and it's kind of my responsibility to support my local community. So as a part of kind of that reimagining that American dream, Mike, I think of it that way too. Like it's not just becoming wealthy, but kind of reigniting that passion for like serving your local community. And
Thanks for reading it, by the way.
Yeah. No, I love the way you think, man. So that's my little addition to that.
Yeah, and just like before you get onto your riff, which I'm looking forward to, the hard money deflationary asset angle. If an individual doesn't have like that calling or that passion or that meaning to live, it can give them the freedom to find it, because it can get them off the flywheel to where they have enough time and energy to dedicate their mind and their body towards a passion or finding a passion. Because I was one of those individuals, like when I was a kid, I was always revered as being skilled. So I grew up as an artist, and I was generally pretty good in school. But I was a kid who I didn't know, like, if you guys might understand this, if you're smart enough and skilled enough in a lot of different ways, you don't know which way to point yourself. And then I kind of fell into this rut where because I couldn't pick just one to hammer out, that like I went down this nihilistic path. And once you have something that gives you hope for a better future, then you can start to like go down the whole finding passion and finding reasoning for life and all that other stuff.
I was at a conference. It was Bitcoin Day in Kansas City, and I had actually a couple people come up to me, and they said, "Hey, I follow you on Twitter. I noticed you have Jesus in your bio. I just wanted you to know that I came to Jesus because of Bitcoin, and I decided to give my life to Christ."
I've heard that a lot.
And I was like, "That's really cool." So I gave them a reason to live where they necessarily may not have had one before.
That's powerful stuff, dude. That's awesome.
Damn, that's really interesting. Again, like to find, and I guess it's it's been like the kind of a different journey for me, where perhaps it was partly the environment in the school that I was in seemed, and maybe some of my teachers that were a little bit older, a little bit more closed-minded, a little bit less, because I tend to lean on maybe not the today's definition of liberal, but I tend to lean on the social side of the liberal side of social issues more often than not, in the context of, like, you know, what would have been considered socially left in the 90s and the 2000s. Maybe not 2022. But now I find myself in a lot of instances where I would have before identified as socially left, and thus opposed to many views from a religious standpoint. I'm now seeing my views not having on social issues not having changed a whole bunch, but being labeled as right, which I find interesting.
Right as in right leaning, or right as in correct?
No, right as in right leaning.
Okay.
Yeah. So I found that my views on a lot of the stuff that I viewed in the 90s and in the early 2000s hasn't shifted a lot, but the labeling of the way I think has.
Yeah.
Which is an odd feeling. But anyway, I digress. I kind of grew up in a school system that those left-leaning social views at the time were not necessarily kosher. And now in a lot of instances with religious people that I meet, that maybe is not the instance, and that's maybe not the case. And so I think that was kind of my aversion and my drifting away from religious institutions, was kind of growing up in that, and then saying it's odd because the Overton window has shifted a lot, and the definitions of things have shifted a lot. And so where I grew up thinking that the far right was kind of the anti-free speech, clamp down on things, people can't say this, you can't say that, it's totally done a 180. Whereas now I see like a lot of the far left is like, you can't say that, you can't do these things. And I'm just in this odd space in the middle. And I feel that with Bitcoin too, I just want people to be able to float ideas and say whatever the hell they like. And then the reality can bubble to the top. And I don't know if you guys have kind of experienced that as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I have many favorite things about the Bitcoin community, but one of my favorites is just, regardless of political affiliation or religion, everybody's just interested in finding like the truth and the right answer.
Mm-hmm. And
by the right answer, I mean the truth, because when it comes to like all the stuff we're dealing with now, and really anything else, like when it comes to truth, you don't have to put effort into it. Lies require effort. Lies require like defending the lie, pushing the lie, getting people to like buy into the lie. The truth is just like, you can believe it or not, it's gonna come out eventually. Like there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That's proof of work, can't be fabricated.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that was a fantastic little riff on that, Mike. Thank you for your contribution to this vlog. And we'll keep it rolling here. Everybody in the chat, again, thank you for dropping all these messages and everything. Everybody watching, like, sub, all that stuff. We're going to move on to our last topic. And Andy, you are up. Take it away. What has you feeling bullish?
Well, here's what I got. So I'm very bullish because financial advisors don't understand Bitcoin. And so
I know one.
I've been working in legacy finance since 2010. And
I'm sorry.
so I know I'm kind of in the lion's den here. And I'm bullish because, my peers don't understand Bitcoin. And before I get into it, it's worth pointing out that like a lot of us have come around, right? Like Like Ben, I think a
yeah.
few months back, you had Heavily Armed Clown on the show,
Mhm.
and he made the point that like this is stage 2 of Bitcoin right now, right? Whereas like stage 1 was like the weirdos and the anarchists and the libertarians, and like now stage 2 is like the Michael Saylors, right? And like
Yeah.
the institutional money, right? And I guess I represent part of stage 2 Bitcoin because I'm a certified financial planner. I'm like a buttoned up kind of financial advisor guy, right? But what I have, what I've seen, well, first off, it's worth pointing out, like I had Andy Edstrom on my podcast this week, right? And he was one of the first financial advisors to come around to Bitcoin. Cullen Roach was on the what Bitcoin did this week. I don't know if you guys saw that podcast, but like Cullen Roach, like he's a guy who, he said to Peter McCormick, like he likes Bitcoin now. And I have always thought of him, like he's a very smart guy, but I have always thought of him as more of like kind of like the status quo in legacy finance, right? So I thought it was very telling that he told Peter McCormick that he likes Bitcoin now. But most of my peers don't. Okay. So like Michael Kitces, who is maybe the thought leader in my world, in the financial planning world, he went to the CoinDesk Bitcoin for Advisors conference in the fall, and he told Tyrone Ross that, he's more interested in like the technology of blockchain and not Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, right? Which is like any of us that were around in 2016, 2017, we know that that's like the thing that you say when you want to sound like you're well-versed, but you actually don't really know what you're talking about. And this is like Michael Kitces, like he's a very intelligent dude. In Adam and I's backyard, there's a fellow named Peter Maluk, who's a pretty important guy in the RIA space. And his angle is like, he said a few times that the dominant cryptocurrency of the future has not yet been invented yet, which also kind of sounds like a cop-out. And so the reason why I'm bullish is because like as an investor, whether if you're investing in Bitcoin or anything else, if you want to be like an active allocator and make an active bet, you want to own those things that like the rest of the market doesn't understand yet or is misunderstood. And I can just tell you, like, if you're worried that everyone else is in on the trade and all of Bitcoin Twitter has figured this thing out, I'm telling you that that's not the case. Like they haven't figured it out yet. There's tens of trillions of dollars in the RIA channel, and more in the rest of wealth management. And for a couple of reasons, like A, they can't buy it, and B, they just haven't done the work yet. I think there's still some resistance, probably because, Bitcoin has been kind of a movement that's come from retail, right? Like it hasn't come from like, the smart financial people. Like really it started with kind of retail plebs. And so that's very bullish because eventually the institutions will figure it out. Eventually, the financial advisors will, they'll take an allocation either because, they're smart, they're self-seeking individuals that will figure it out, that will see the value in their clients merely, saving money, or because their clients just want it. Like they keep talking about it and there's just a demand for it, or because of, career risk. A lot of legacy financial people will just look at this and they'll say, I want to keep my job, right? Like I want to stay in business. And so I need to make an allocation to this asset class. And so that's what makes me very bullish, maybe bullish for the people that are holding Bitcoin right now, right? Because if you're holding Bitcoin right now, it means you're still early. I don't know how long it will take for this narrative to play out, but eventually, the rest of legacy finance will get in on the trade, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, and it plays into everything we've been talking about, right? It's a combination of people have been deferring that responsibility, that research to other people. People have come to Bitcoin in different ways and are, 90% of the world is still at the butthole, and haven't grabbed a leg or a trunk or an ear or anything like that yet. It's a gradual thing, and it's going to take that slow shift of people realizing what's going on, having that low time preference, putting in the work, putting in that proof of work. and it will be a very gradual process. But for the people that are here now, and if you're still here, you've been through. I think he's just swapping out his camera or something. If people are still here through this year, and we've been crab walking our way through 2021, other than like early in the year. We had some spikes and it was exciting for a little bit, and now many are disillusioned. But if you're still sticking around and you're looking at this and you understand it, then you've already done the work. You're already ready and raring to go. I think Andy is here in some way, shape, or form. He's with us in spirit, I think. But yeah, like people that are sticking around, they've done the work. And so I'll open it up, Adam or Mike, if you want to.
The funny thing about your comment around these individuals pushing off their accountability and responsibility, did you see what JP Morgan did? It's around just like the kind of crypto space, which is like cringy. Yeah. But JP Morgan just completely ripped off, I think it was Blockworks's work on like the whole just like space. Like they just literally plagiarized their work. It's like you don't want these entities getting into Bitcoin and not understanding it, because they'll dump it at the wrong times.
Yeah.
Like they're just people. They'll dump it for like the retail reasons if they don't understand it.
Yeah. That'll be the beautiful thing too, to see the equivalent of like, who is it? Was it Jim Cramer that bought and then sold everything on like the China FUD, like at the very bottom, like at 30? Yep. He was like, well, China banned it, so I'm worried about that, so I'm going to dump it all. And then there was like a family office or some institution that bought Bitcoin, and they dumped it all on the double spend FUD that happened at the beginning of 2021.
That was early, like right after Elon, like the rise up to 69. Like they were like, oh, we took profits, we think Bitcoin's done. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And they were bragging. I forget how much they allocated, like they allocated a fair amount of money. It was like $100 million or something like that. And then they were bragging, maybe it wasn't 100 million, but they were bragging about like $200,000 in profit.
Yeah.
That they sold it for. And then like they sold it like after some massive dip. And yeah, it'll be beautiful to watch that stuff play out, where as institutions start to understand and some of the people get like a deep understanding of it, the ones that hold through that FUD and that reap the benefits of it, that'll be pretty telling. And also, I think, as to the point that we were talking about in relation to Andy himself, how you kind of come in and there's a lot more signal now than there was a few years ago. And there's a lot more carefully thought out pieces, like from you, Mike, and you have people coming out and kind of creating this narrative from a lot of different aspects of what this thing is. And the narrative is becoming clearer and more precise in a lot of different aspects. And I think we've just begun to see that play out on the institutional front. Like you get Michael Saylor out there, and he's making the case of this is hard money, the most pristine collateral asset the world has ever seen. Bitcoin is time, Bitcoin is energy, all of these messages that resonate. And I think that type of content will only continue to be built out and made more robust, so that as new entrants come in, there'll just be this plethora of information to sift through that is concise and that is precise in its definition of what they're trying to say. So that's what's exciting to me. But
good. Andy's back, and I wanted to make a point when he was around, because the thing that I'm also bullish about the institutional stuff is that we're like what Heavily Armed Clown said, we're in stage 2, but within stage 2, we're in stage 1 of it. Like we're just seeing the risk takers and maybe like the smartest individuals within institutions are just now getting exposed. Like we're still waiting for the middle of the bell curve to come in. And that's before the middle of the bell curve of like retail. because we're still very much on like both ends of the bell curve within retail just right now. Like we got the dumbest of the dumb and we got the super smart people. I'm probably one of the dumbest of the dumb. Like, I think we all probably argue that for our own standpoints. We don't want to like toot our own horn too hard, but like, guys, because like retail, stage 2 is institutions, stage 3 is going to be governments. Like, holy crap.
By the way, Andy, shots fired. Sister Maria says that you must be on that Ethereum internet.
Yeah. I mean, Sister Maria is just dropping bombs here tonight. So you're right, Sister Maria. I deserve that.
Oh, that's great. Adam, did you want to tag in anything?
Yeah, I can add some thoughts on that. I do agree, Andy, especially with the point that you made that we're still early. I believe that we're still very early. And I think the legacy financial system will probably be the first biggest domino to fall. And Mike, you mentioned that, you don't necessarily want certain people like that. I think you said, getting into this space. And
you referring to like
the JP Morgan stuff,
institutions that don't understand it.
Yeah, institutions that don't understand it. And I do agree with that to some extent. But I also am a firm believer that Bitcoin really is for everyone. I think that it could do some damage in the short term. And my selfish reason for not wanting them in is I want to get all the the believers, the plebs, my friends and family in Bitcoin before all that happens. Because once the legacy financial system builds that bridge where they start the mass migration onto the arc, I think the rest of the dominoes are just going to fall so fast. And when that happens, we're not really going to know what to do. We're going to lose track of all of our our indicators and our metrics, and everything's just going to go crazy. All of our signals are going to go haywire. But before that, I want the right people there. So that the selfish reason to me, wants that to happen in a certain order. But ultimately, Bitcoin's good for humans, man. So they're humans too. It's good for good people and it's good for bad people. So and then back to my point earlier, them being on the Bitcoin team ultimately benefits you and I as hodlers and as network supporters. I think good points all around. And Andy, I like your take, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a good take.
I love it. Well, gentlemen, I think what I'm going to do now, because we've kind of gone around the circle, we'll start rounding it out. But I kind of just want to go around one last time and just kind of get final thoughts from everybody, whether it be on any of the topics, anything that stood out for you that you didn't get to touch on, and also where people can find you, all that kind of stuff. I might even if you want to throw in something that has stuck out to you, like a piece of content or anything like that this week that may pertain, whatever you feel like throwing in at the end here. So Adam, I'll go to you. Any final thoughts on the day? Anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah, something that I was thinking about bringing up earlier on your topic of wallets. It's something that most people probably haven't even heard of, but it's probably been about 2 years now. But I got a hardware wallet, and I really enjoyed it. It was called a Jupiter wallet, and the reason why I have been extremely hesitant to promote it is because there's some marketing information out there that's unrelated to the company, but there's some suspicious companies out there, to say the least, with a very similar name. So for that reason, I don't think they have had as much success as I think they could have, but it was a really cool product. If you guys are interested in checking out new hardware wallets, I'm not necessarily endorsing them, but I've used it and it's really cool. I don't even know if they're still in business, to be honest, but they were developed by a company called Feitian, as a parent company, and they make like those physical two-factor authentication devices, kind of like a YubiKey, basically. They're like a YubiKey competitor. So they're a pretty reputable business, I believe, but just something cool that I don't think everybody knows about. I know that it's they don't have a lot of PR out there, and it was a cool product, so I thought I'd add that. Ben, you got something?
I was just gonna ask, is that the one? It was like stupidly thin, and it was
Yes.
just a tiny little.
Yes.
I remember I didn't really get to play around with it a lot, but I remember getting my hands on one and kind of like just testing a few quick things. It was so busy at the time I couldn't even attempt to do anything with it, but it was so little and so thin. It was like 2 credit cards stacked on top of each other.
I kid you not. I carried that in my front pocket on my keychain for over a year, just to put it through the paces and see what it would do. But yeah, so small, so thin, and it worked pretty well. There were some rough edges, just like I believe there are with every product out there. But if you're being really critical, and then obviously the marketing stuff is a challenge to get around. But anyway, that's my final thought. You can find me. My Twitter handle is @AdamSimecka, and that's where I'll be.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Andy,
thank you so much for having me on, by the way.
Yeah, no worries. Andy, you're next on my screen because of your ETH internet. So
yeah,
let's get your final thoughts.
So my parting thought, my childhood next door neighbor, Brian Sandvig, is in the comments, and he said that I need to make one final dig at Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, you guys, she wants you to think that inflation exists because of corporate greed, for example. But in its essence, inflation always starts with money printing. That's always the first factor involved. And so Bitcoin fixes this, though. So that's why I'm bullish. And you can find me. My podcast is called The Reformed Financial Advisor, and I'm on Twitter just @AndyFlattery. And Ben, thanks for having me on.
Dude, I'm so glad that you joined. Thanks for being here. And Mike, you're going to round it out. Any final thoughts that you may have here?
Well, I'll join the train, and thank you for bringing me on. But I have fun doing this all the time. Like, you guys will be able to catch me on Spaces. I'll just drop my Twitter real quick since I just mentioned it. On Twitter, you can catch me at the Mike Hobart. It sounds extremely pretentious, but that's because somebody took my name already and I had to think of something. So I apologize. But 2 things in my kind of like leaving comments, I would recommend to users like that are in the comments or anybody that's watching this is to pay attention for 2 things. One in particular would be within the U.S., banks getting cleared for FDIC to custody Bitcoin on their reserves. That's going to be massive, in my opinion, which this can be another conversation like at some different time, or you guys will probably hear me in Spaces talking about it with Magoo, because he and I tend to be the only ones that talk about it. If, and I'm going to say when that FDIC clearance comes through, it's going to be huge for Bitcoin adoption, but it's also going to be huge for the dollar. So I wouldn't be banking on the dollar going away anytime soon. But the other thing, and I mentioned that because that's a huge kind of push within the Bitcoin community, thinking that, all fiat currencies are going to blow up and go away. It's not going to happen. But the other thing that I would recommend everybody really pay attention to closely would be I'm a huge fan of geopolitics. I would be watching what's going on in Kazakhstan right now. Kazakhstan is one of it might be the largest energy producer in Asia. If not, it's like top 3. With the politics going on around there, like we just saw a 12% hash rate fall because of it. It was really quietly done, I believe, late 2020, or maybe even last year, but there was about 24,000 miners that moved to Russia. And now we've got Russian influence over a major energy producer that also has a lot of miners that just fled from China. These are very, very important dynamics to consider if any of you guys are watching price action like religiously, or if you're paying attention to hash rate, which you should, because it's very important to the network. I would just, if you're not big into following geopolitics, they're super important. They help us decide like all these other machinations that are going on. pay attention. It's very important. That's all I'm going to say.
I love that. The Kazakhstan thing is super interesting. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. Yeah, I'll round it out here, guys. Again, thank you so much for coming and spending an hour and a half on your Friday evening with me. It was an honor. So thank you all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Ben.
guys. And everybody watching, damn, that was a good chat. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Again, everybody that came, all of these guys, all of their Twitter handles are in the show notes. So I highly recommend that you guys go follow them, check them out. The guys are backstage now. By the way, if you guys want to say a quick goodbye, I will be in there after we go offline here. So if you're around for a couple extra minutes, I'll be there. But everybody watching, please do hit like, subscribe, share, all those things. They really, really do help, and they help get this content in front of more eyeballs. I will always recommend everybody do that. If you want to help with the show in another way, you can always hit up the previously mentioned sponsors down below: Shakepay, LEDN, Bitrefill, Keystone, and BillFodl. They're all in the links. And finally, if you really liked what you saw, you can always drop me a Bitcoin tip either on Twitter, I do have that enabled, or at my Strike page, which is strike.me/BTC sessions. Go there, type in whatever amount you like. You hit the tip button, you'll be greeted with a Lightning invoice, or if you tap to the right, a regular Bitcoin QR code. With that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or evening, wherever you may be. And I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.